Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I would like to discuss with you a huge change Bungie is making as we head into the Witch Queen, in case you didn't read Thursday's TWAP. They are buffing all exotic primaries, all of them, by 40% against minors. The important part here is the against minors, in case you're like, oh, but it's going to melt champions. No, it's against minors, but still, a 40% buff for most of these primaries against minors is an insane buff. Bungie does not make changes like this. This is probably one of the biggest weapon type buffs I've ever seen from Bungie. Bungie typically buffs guns somewhere between 10 to 25%, but not 40. These 10 exotic primaries I have for you today are about to be absolutely insane post buff, and if you don't have them, you should definitely get them. The first gun on this list is Risk Runner. Yes, I put Risk Runner here over Trinity Gall because we all know Trinity Gall is going to be good with a 40% buff. Like, let's be honest, Trinity Gall is already super good. You give it 40% buff, it's going to be 40% better. Like, we know what Trinity Gall can do. Let's not act like Trinity Gall is a shocker about how good it's going to be. I think Risk Runner is. So, people don't understand how Risk Runner perk actually works. Risk Runner's perk states, Arc Conductor, when taking arc damage, this weapon becomes more powerful and resists incoming arc damage. Kills extend the time in this overcharged state. However, you can self-proc this with a pulse grenade if you're on a Warlock or Titan, and once it's procced, as long as you're getting kills, it doesn't go away. You don't have to take any more arc damage. So you have to proc it and then get kills, and once you're getting kills, it doesn't matter what damage you take. As long as you're getting kills, you're re-proccing the perk. So the perk can stay on your screen even after you've not taken arc damage for, like, even if you've not taken arc damage for like 10 minutes and you're still getting kills, which would be really weird for this game. You can still have the perk on your screen. So the perk doesn't, you don't need to keep taking arc damage, you just need to keep getting kills once you've activated the perk. And while this perk is active, your mag is refilled completely every time you get a kill, which is huge. Like, you have like better subsistence. It's like running Huckleberry, which we'll get to. This could be really strong with deal with arc damage in the future. We know for a fact the empowered wizards, since we know we're dealing with the Hive Guardians. We know that the Hive Guardian wizards are arc damage. We know that they're basically Stormcallers, which means they can be really. This gun can be really useful during the campaign, especially if you go into the legendary version, which my guess will be legend difficulty, right? If you're going to legendary campaign, this gun could help you stay alive against those. It could be really strong there, especially with like something like a Pardon Our Dust and like a sword or something. It could be a relatively strong loadout for endgame for that type of activity. Second on this list, I have TCrew's Divination. This is the solar exotic bow from Season of Chosen. TCrew's is incredibly strong as is, and the 40% buff will make it even better. Its explosion damage also receives this buff. Now, I don't know this, and this is something I should probably clarify at some point. We need to get a clarification on this. It says the 40% buff is against minors, but it also says the buff applies to all explosion-like activities. So the easiest way I can describe this is think Ace with Firefly. Ace is getting a 40% buff, which, by the way, Ace is probably going to be pretty good in PvE now with a 40% buff. But the 40% buff will also apply to the Firefly explosion you get on the kill, which will be really strong. I didn't put Ace in here, but yeah, Ace is probably going to be pretty strong, now that I think about it as an example for the buff, but yeah. Its explosion damage also receives this buff, and so it will be a champ and high-level enemy melter. This is the problem I don't know. I don't know if this buff for the explosion stuff actually goes to all enemies or just to the miners as well. So, like, is the explosion damage just going to be a minor thing? So, like, when you're killing miners and, like, GMs, this thing will be amazing still, right? It's already really good against champions and endgame content, so it doesn't really need a ridiculous buff there. I mean, obviously, Bungie wants us to use our special and heavy ammo to kill those types of enemies. That's why they're there. They're there to burn our ammo and to make us think about how we deal with them. If you don't know how TCrews works, you hip fire the bow and then the enemy is debuffed once you shoot. It'll give you a little red tracking thing, you shoot, the enemy is debuffed. And then you ADS and kill the enemy with the bow. This causes them to explode, yellow numbers if you critted them. And as you can see by the gameplay, it absolutely clears ads, and it's about to do this 40% better. Something to also note here that nobody knows, but is incredibly important to know. Once the enemy is debuffed, they'll explode with any damage. You can melee them, your teammate can melee them, they'll explode. If they're like in a point where they can be meleeed and then they'll explode. They're actually really strong. This bow is actually really strong for helping your teammate clear ads, which is kind of shocking. A choice that I don't think many people are going to think of, but I think is going to be very, very strong next season, is in fact Traveler's Chosen, the exotic kinetic sidearm. This sidearm already feels super good, and now that it has osmosis, if you have its catalyst, oh, and full auto, this exotic sidearm. Okay, this exotic sidearm comes with the perk Gathering Light. Final blows with this weapon grant stacks of Gathering Light. You can hold to reload and consume these stacks to gain ability energy to any of your uncharged abilities. This goes to any of the uncharged, and I believe it's equal distribution. So even if you only have one ability and you have 10 stacks, you're going to get your entire thing back. If you have 10 stacks and 2 abilities uncharged, you'll get both abilities completely back. I don't think it is like split between the two, something like Wellspring. I think it's a full ability stack given to you based on the number of stacks. So that's something to note. I think this gun is way overlooked currently at how good it is at giving you your abilities back. And now that it's about to do 40% more damage, which you can see by this gameplay, it clears ads really well as is. It's already pretty good at doing this. Once it can do it 40% better, it's going to absolutely clear rooms. And it runs osmosis with the catalyst. And so you could do something really simple like running Elemental Armaments and running Font of Might, and now you have Rampage time Twindle time. And if you really wanted to make it like crazy, you could run Surprise Attack with Font of Might, with Elemental Armaments, and run Elemental Charge. And now you have Rampage times 3 when you reload the gun, and you also have Rampage times 1 when you're just using the gun. And so now you'll have, damage all the time on top of the 40% buff it's already about to get. This gun can be made really good as is, and it's about to be made even better with this 40% buff. And with Void 3.0 coming, and needing, probably more ability build coming, this gun's going to be probably top of the list of guns I'm going to be recommending in builds to use, because it's going to be so strong. Next up is Graviton Lance. I'm putting this here with a star next to it, because I really don't know how good it's going to be. According to Weapon Sandbox lead Chris Proctor, which is the lead on the sandbox on the weapons team, like he's in charge of how they balance weapons and stuff. He says it's insane with this buff. Like, he says Graviton is like amazing, because effectively the exotic pulse rifles are getting a 54% buff, because how the math works, when you add a 10% buff to pulse rifles and then you add a 40% buff on top of that, it works out to be a 54% buff, not just 40% buff. Not just a 50% buff like you would think, but it actually comes out to like 54%. But it felt worse of all the guns I used for this video. Like, I know how good it can be, because I saw its potential when you would kill the ads and the explosions would pop off. I could really feel the potential of this gun. But it felt the worst. This gun could be very good, but I just don't know for now whether it's going to be that good. Apparently it's insane, but we'll see. I think it will be strong, but not the strongest of the pulse rifle options, especially compared to the other two exotic pulses I have on this list. I think both of them are going to be better, because they're already pretty good. Up next, the only hand cannon on this list, and that is Sunshot. Sunshot is like having Firefly explosive payload, but you don't need a crit to proc Firefly and Firefly chain. It feels really strong right now, and the way its explosions chain makes it feel really good. You feel like you're throwing grenades when you shoot this gun. This probably is going to be one of the best hand cannon choices in endgame content, because it's the only 150 hand cannon left, which means it still has that good rate of fire to damage differential that 150 hand cannons used to have in PvE. It also has huge forgiveness because the explosive rounds cause burn, which means you don't have to be really all that accurate with it. And the explosive rounds give you extra range, which is a perk of having explosive rounds. If you like hand cannons and you don't have Sunshot and it's Catalyst, I would definitely go get it. It is about to be one of the strongest hand cannons in the game. If you like hand cannons in PvE and you want to use a hand cannon in PvE, I would make sure you have Sunshot and its Catalyst. Its Catalyst makes it have really good range and really good stability, makes it like be a stat monster. And so if you don't have Sunshot, like, go get Sunshot. You should have it. It's going to be a top choice in endgame PvE, and I know a lot of people like using hand cannons in Destiny because they feel really good. I'm personally an SMG guy myself, but that's all we get, like in hand cannons. Alright, we're into the top 5, and I think the order of these matters because the top one here is going to be so good that it's going to dictate the meta. Like, I actually think this gun is going to need a nerf. I think the 40% buff here is going to be too much. I don't know whether like Bungie tested all guns. I'm sure they tested as many as they could, but I actually think this gun's going to be a problem. Number 1 on this list. I actually think it's going to be a problem. I think it's going to dictate the meta just as bad as Vector the Class did this season. At 5, we have the Monarch. This bow I've already talked about. It's an exotic void bow. It's very strong at the in-game level, and I think it's just as strong at the regular ad level when enemies are clumped up. This weapon can be obtained from the exotic kiosk and 40% buff, and with its 40% buff, I think with any barrier bow, it could be an S tier choice for GM content. I've already gone into detail about this bow in my top 10 energy weapons to get, because I already thought it was good enough to be used then. But I think with a 10% buff, with a 40% buff on top of what it can already do, it's going to be an ad clear monster in like GM content. Like, it's going to be a really, really strong bow. And we have any barrier bow coming, and with a 40% buff, this bow could be really strong. I mean, it's going to be stronger than most other bows in the game, right? So, I think it's worth looking at as a void option for your anti-barrier next season. Obviously, I'll have a better idea once we get into the season, but I would say make sure you have the Monarch. It can be obtained from the exotic kiosk with an Ascendant Shard and exotic Cypher, so make sure you go pick that up. At 4, we have Bad Juju. Bad Juju is an exotic kinetic pulse that when you get kills with this weapon gives you damage buff for the gun that is similar to the damage stacking of Swashbuckler. It also gives you super energy based on the number of stacks of this damage buff. It also refills the magazine when you get a kill, while also firing in full auto so you don't have to shoot this gun repeatedly. This gun can be obtained from the exotic kiosk. Its Catalyst is also obtainable from World Loot, from Strikes and Gambit, activity loot pool, right? This gun already felt pretty good. Like, when I was using it here in this Battleground gameplay, I thought this gun felt, like, pretty decent. Like, it didn't feel amazing, but, like, it felt pretty good. And I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty decent. Yeah, super regen is amazing, especially now that most super regen comes from dealing damage, and, well, you have to deal damage with this super generating gun to get the kills. So it felt pretty good for super regenerating. It's about to get a 54% buff, though, because it's a pulse. And I think this gun's going to have some really good super potential in the future. For those that don't know, you can make Charge with Light build that when you throw your grenade, once your super runs out, you can get 50% of your super back. And obviously this is a kinetic weapon, so if the kinetic helmet perk can just go on any helmet, right, you can make a pretty easy Charge with Light build here still, with like basically no effort. And you're just going to be able to run, you know, as much as you want all the time. Like, it's gonna be really strong. I really think Bad Juju is worth getting. If you don't have it, go get it, because there's gonna be some insane super builds coming out that I think you might want to play with if you're somebody who really likes using their super a lot. Especially, I think this gun could bring Ursa's back to the meta if we're like in an unstopped pulse season, because we don't know what our other unstop is, right? Because we know our 2 anti-barriers, we know our 2 unstop, we know our 2 overloads, we just don't know the other unstop. We know our unstop is currently a special, but we don't know what the other unstop is. So let's see what the other unstop is before we like truly dictate what the meta is going to be. But That being said, if we're in an unstopped pole season, this gun's gonna be like top of the list for like Ursas and Wells, because like it's gonna give you the other 50% of your super really fast if you run something like Phoenix. Like this could bring Phoenix back into the meta. And heck, you run that old charge with light build, run Aeons, and run this, and like boom, you're running Phoenix, but you're also giving people super energy. So there's like a lot of potential here. At number 3, I have Huckleberry. I do think this gun is already really strong and worth running if you don't need an exotic heavy, which you don't if you're running teammates with G-Horn. You don't need an exotic heavy, you could run something else. But I think after its buff, it's going to be a top 3 primary in the entire game. With its catalyst, its entire mag refills, on kill, and it has the old Rampage numbers. It's from pre-nerf, so at Rampage times 3, it does 66% more damage instead of 33 Rampages now. It absolutely mows ads down, and is an S tier choice now, and about to be given a 40% buff. But I still don't think it's as strong as these top 2. The top 2 guns here are probably going to be the top 2 most important primaries in all of Destiny from here on out. And so, as good as Huckleberry is, as good as Huckleberry is about to be, I think these top 2 still don't quite touch it. At number 2, we have Outbreak Perfected, the Kinetic Pulse Rifle. The Kinetic Exotic Pulse Rifle. This gun has a slew of things that are going to put it here besides the 54% buff it's going to get. The nanites, which are the little thing it spawns when you get repeated crits or a critical kill, are also getting a 40% buff as well. Second, its Catalyst, which will now be completable at the start of Season 16. For those that don't have it, will now be obtainable from the playlist activities. And the Catalyst makes it even so more nanites spawn on crits and when you get the kill. Also, this gun sounds absolutely amazing when Outlaw procs on it, and it has 0 recoil, like you can see from this gameplay. Like, this gun doesn't move. I'm struggling to use it here because I'm in a close range encounter with a lot of ads. I didn't pick the right activity to use this one on, but it was really good. Like, it was really good. Like, it impressed me. I'm sure this gun is going to be used a lot on day 1 raids. When you can't be close to stuff, it ads take a lot of damage, and the nanites can really start spawning and doing their work, giving you that extra damage. I really think, like, this gun could be top of the meta come day 1 raid. And you're just going to have to have one person who's just going to have to sacrifice themselves and run something, you know, lower down on the list for their exotic, because they're going to need something else to run, right? They're going to need, like, we're going to get G-Horn most times for damage. So you're running G-Horn, that one person's going to sacrifice themselves and run G-Horn. But I totally see day 1 this gun being, like, out there in the wild. If you don't have this gun, go ahead, pick it up from the kiosk. It'll be a Ascendant Shard and an Exotic Cypher. And get ready to go get its Catalyst. Obviously, you can't get its Catalyst right now, but you can get its Catalyst in the future. And I would recommend its Catalyst, because its Catalyst gives you extra nanites on repeated crits, which those nanites will help deal damage to beefier red bars and to majors, which this gun actually already is pretty good at killing majors without any buffs to it. So a 40% buff to its regular ad clear potential will in turn not make it so terrible to kill ads and make it so the majors are a little more focusable. Alright. Lastly, we have the number 1 weapon on this list, and I think most people are going to laugh, but I think this gameplay will speak for it. Finally, we have Teraba. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this gun is about to be the best primary in all of Destiny, and I truly believe this. It is getting this 40% buff, but also is being allowed to when stowed, hold 50% of its charge for Ravenous Beast. Ravenous Beast is an exotic perk that when you, after taking a certain amount of damage or dealing a certain amount of damage, you press and hold reload, and now you have this gun go crazy. Like, this gun actually goes insane once you proc Ravenous Beast, because the rate of fire goes to like 1,000 rounds per minute, and it's like a 35% damage buff on top of its already damage from being a 750 RPM SMG. And this gun's already good, like, by itself with no damage perks at all. Like, by itself, it's a good SMG because it's a 750 round per minute SMG. Like, it's in a good archetype for guns inside of the game, and they're giving it a 40% buff. So imagine like what Borrowed Time feels like with Rampage times 3. But that's how this gun is going to feel all the time. Because this gun does very similar damage to what Borrowed Time does. So imagine literally giving it Rampage times 3, but all the time, and then give it that 30+% buff, whatever the damage buff is, for Ravenous Beast, and the rate of fire increase. This gun's going to go literally insane on ads. Like, you're going to kill even, like, GM level enemies, or day 1 raid level enemies, like, ridiculously fast. You're going to kill them so fast you're not even know that you were fighting 2500 level enemies. They're not going to feel like it. I don't really think I can speak about how good this gun is going to be. They're giving a gun that I don't think needed a 40% buff. I literally just think it needed the being able to hold some of the charge at all, like literally any of it when you stow it, because you're gonna have to switch to your special weapon for something, or your heavy weapon to something. And the way this gun wants you to play it is it wants you to just hold it out all the time, which I show off doing here, and it works. But even in this gameplay, I do switch, and I lose all my charge for it. But in the game, during Witch Queen, I want to be able to hold onto that charge, and I think that's the only thing that was ever holding this gun back from ever being part of the meta, like literally ever. And now that they're buffing this gun too with a 40% buff inside of PvE, this gun's gonna go crazy. Like, it's gonna be insane. You're going to need this gun, so please go farm the spoils out that you need to get this gun. If you've already have a whole bunch of spoils stocked, I don't care if you want to save for new raid weapons. We're gonna be able to craft the raid weapons. Just don't worry about trying to hold on to raid weapons. We're about to be able to craft them. It doesn't really matter whether you want to be able to farm out perfect ones day 1. We'll be able to craft them. You'll be able to farm out a perfect roll in no time. Plus, we already had the crafting system for 2 weeks, and the perks are changeable. So besides needing the raid perks, like, you'll have what you need to make probably mostly good raid weapons from the start. So I don't really see a point to holding on to spoils. So if you don't have Teraba, I would go get Teraba. I'd go get it. Like, legitimately, I would go get it. Teraba is incredibly strong and incredibly worth it. And it's about to be somehow better. So yeah, if you don't have this, please go get it. It's going to be the #1 gun next season. Like, I'm sure its usage in PvE is probably going to, like, quadruple. Probably more than that, because it's barely used now, and it's probably going to be, like, one of the most used primaries. Even though people, like, a lot of people don't have it. A lot of people didn't play during that time. I would still go get it. Alright, that's all I have for you for this video. If you don't have Outbreak or Fight It, and you don't have Teraba, those are the 2 I would go get. That's 2 things I would take away from this video. But this script is already 1,300 words plus, and so I think it's all I need to cover. I'm sorry this video is out today instead of on Friday, but I need to make this video because I know people are going to be looking for it. I hope this video helped you get ready for Witch Queen. It's so soon, and we are getting such good news. The game is looking in such a good place. I appreciate all the support, and see you on Monday for a brand new video. And don't forget to like and sub if you haven't already, and goodbye.